Do you feel like something is off, but you can't explain what it is? Like there's some invisible blockage, something stopping you from moving forward, from changing, from transforming? The ancient alchemists discovered that everything that exists, your energy, your emotions, your mind, even your destiny, is governed by 4 hidden forces. And if you don't learn to master them, you'll stay stuck in the same cycle with no evolution, no answers, no change. Earth, fire, air, and water. They're not just elements of nature, they're secret codes that control your life. Those who understand this mystery awaken. Those who ignore it keep getting dragged through the same pains and struggles. The great masters knew that true alchemy isn't about turning lead into gold. It's about transforming you. The problem? This truth was hidden from humanity, and only those who are ready for this revelation will see this message in time. Now tell me, are you going to ignore this calling, or are you ready to wake up? Imagine a time when science and philosophy were one and the same, when thinkers weren't confined by rigid disciplines and dared to ask, what is the world really made of? It was in this setting that Aristotle, one of the greatest philosophers in history, emerged to expand on the teachings of Empedocles and give new structure to the theory of the 4 elements. If Empedocles had identified earth, water, fire, and air as the foundations of all existence, Aristotle took it further and realized something even deeper. Each element didn't just exist, it had specific qualities that determined its function in the universe. He noticed that everything in nature could be classified through 4 fundamental attributes: hot, cold, dry, and wet. And that's how the elements took on a new dimension. Fire was hot and dry, a force of both destruction and creation. Earth was cold and dry, solid and resistant, the foundation of everything stable. Water was cold and wet, flowing freely and adapting to any container. Air was hot and wet, invisible yet essential to life. But why did this matter? Because Aristotle believed these qualities explained all of nature's transformations. If an object was consumed by fire, it wasn't just a physical phenomenon, it was the dominance of heat and dryness over matter. If a plant grew, it was because moisture and heat were in balance. Everything was connected. Nothing was fixed. Matter wasn't an unchangeable block, but something that could shift depending on the interaction of the elements. This vision became the foundation of centuries of knowledge. The doctors of Greece and Rome used these principles to understand the human body, believing that health was the result of balance among the 4 elements within each person. If someone was sick, it was because one element was in excess or lacking. The alchemists of the Middle Ages absorbed these concepts and began applying them not just to the body, but to the soul. They believed that the journey of spiritual transformation required balancing these forces within oneself. Uncontrolled fire of passion burned and destroyed. Too much earth made a person rigid and inflexible. Excess water led to indecision and attachment. Boundless air caused the mind to get lost in illusions. Mastering the 4 elements meant mastering one's own existence. Aristotle didn't know it, but he was leaving behind a legacy that would transcend millennia. The knowledge he systematized, passed through the hands of the Arabs, was studied by medieval monks, inspired the great occultists of the Renaissance, and has reached us today. Even with the advances of modern science, his vision still resonates because he wasn't just talking about matter, he was talking about a system that governs reality. The 4 elements in alchemy, foundations of transmutation. But the true magic of the 4 elements wasn't just in their interaction with nature. The ancient alchemists realized something even deeper. They understood that these elements weren't just physical substances, but essential forces that reflected the hidden principles of the universe. Those who learned to manipulate and balance them could not only transform matter, but also transform themselves. Alchemy has always been shrouded in mystery. To the outside world, alchemists seemed obsessed with the idea of turning lead into gold. But that was just the surface of a much deeper knowledge. The gold they sought wasn't just the shining metal, it was spiritual perfection. The transmutation of metals was a symbol of the transmutation of the soul. The four elements were the key to this process. In the alchemical laboratory, every substance was a manifestation of one of these principles. Fire burned away impurities, accelerated reactions, and represented the spirit of transformation. Water dissolved and purified, allowing the renewal of both matter and mind. Air facilitated elevation, the connection between the visible and the invisible. Earth provided structure and stability, anchoring the process in the physical world. But there was a secret that only the initiates knew. Just as the external elements could be manipulated in the lab, these same principles existed within the human being. The body was earth. The blood and fluids were water. Breath and thought were air. The vital energy, the spark of willpower, was fire. The true alchemist didn't just master external processes. They understood that real transmutation happened within. Alchemical texts were written in coded language. They spoke of dissolution and coagulation. Solve et coagula. They told of dragons devouring themselves, of kings and queens uniting in sacred marriage, of a secret fire that burned without consuming. But for those who knew how to read beyond the metaphors, the teaching was clear. To reach spiritual gold, one must first dissolve the ego, purify emotions, elevate the mind, and stabilize inner energy. The great masters of alchemy knew that this knowledge was dangerous in the wrong hands. That's why they hid their teachings in symbols and parables. But those who were ready always found the way. And those who truly understood the four elements discovered something that changed everything. Reality can be shaped by those who know how to manipulate it. Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa and the occult philosophy. But not everyone was content with keeping these secrets hidden. There were those who, in the midst of the obscurantism of the Middle Ages, dared to reveal the mysteries of alchemy and magic, putting into words what had previously been transmitted only through symbols and metaphors. Among these few initiates, one name stood out: Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa. In the 16th century, while Europe was caught between religious dogma and the rise of science, Agrippa wrote one of the most enigmatic and influential works of the occult tradition, 3 books of occult philosophy. In these books, he not only reaffirmed the importance of the 4 elements, but elevated them to an even deeper level. To Agrippa, these elements weren't just physical forces or inner principles of the alchemist. They were the foundation of all magic, the bridge between the visible and the invisible, between the human and the divine. According to him, each element had a reflection in the 3 worlds: the physical world, the celestial world, and the spiritual world. In the physical world, they made up all substances on Earth. In the celestial world, they were connected to the planets and stars, influencing events through the laws of astrology. In the spiritual world, they were living forces, subtle energies that could be manipulated to manifest changes in reality. This vision not only reinforced alchemy as a path of transmutation, but also explained the very structure of magic. A magician wasn't someone who defied the laws of nature, but someone who understood them and worked in harmony with them. Fire was the energy of creation and willpower. Water was the vehicle of intuition and the unconscious. Air was the divine breath of communication and the mind. Earth was the anchor, the structure that held everything together. Agrippa believed that by understanding and balancing these 4 elements, an individual could awaken their true potential. One who mastered these principles would be able to influence the world around them, not because they were manipulating external forces, but because they were in tune with the very essence of existence. The knowledge he shared was met with suspicion by many. At a time when the church strictly controlled thought, his words were dangerous. Speaking about the elements, about the connection between man and the cosmos, about the possibility of transcending the limits of matter, these ideas challenged the system. His work was censored, his ideas ridiculed, but his legacy was never forgotten. The initiates knew that 3 books of occult philosophy wasn't just a theoretical treatise. It was a manual for those who were ready to see beyond the veil of reality. Because in the end, Agrippa wasn't just talking about the 4 elements. He was revealing that the key to hidden knowledge had always been within us, and only those who dared to seek it would be able to grasp its true power. Franz Bardon, and the Hermetic practice of the elements. But hidden knowledge never remained stagnant. It transformed, was reborn in different eras, and found new guardians who preserved and refined it. Centuries after Agrippa, a new name emerged in the world of the occult. Someone who didn't just study the mysteries of the four elements, but turned them into a practical method, accessible to those seeking true mastery over these forces. That man was Franz Bardon. Unlike the classical alchemists, who often hid their teachings behind metaphors and symbols, Bardon was direct. To him, magic wasn't a gift reserved for a chosen few, but a precise science, grounded in natural principles and accessible to anyone willing to follow the path of initiation. And at the heart of this journey was the balance of the four elements. Bardon taught that the elements weren't just part of the external world. They existed within every human being. Each person has a dominant elemental force that shapes their personality, tendencies, and even struggles. The true magician, according to Bardon, was the one who learned to balance these forces within themselves, becoming the master of their own nature. To achieve this, he developed specific exercises detailed in his book Initiation into Hermetics. Mastering fire involved cultivating willpower and determination, strengthening the spirit so that no adversity could steer it off course. The practice of water required developing empathy, intuition, and flexibility, allowing the mind to flow without resistance. Air was trained through mental lightness, control over thoughts, and the ability to communicate clearly and precisely. Earth demanded discipline, patience, and stability, anchoring the magician in their own internal structure. But Bardon went even further. He taught that by balancing these elements, the practitioner could transcend the limitations of body and mind, reaching higher states of consciousness. This was the foundation of true magic, not tricks, not empty rituals, but complete mastery over oneself and the invisible forces that shape reality. His system didn't promise quick results. Unlike the false promises of commercial occultism, Bardon made it clear that true spiritual development required extreme dedication. But those who followed his path reported profound changes, not just in their perception of reality, but in the way they interacted with the world, how they became masters of their own lives. If Agrippa brought the philosophy of the four elements into the occult world, Bardon brought the practice. He proved that this knowledge wasn't something abstract, but a powerful tool for those ready to use it, and those who truly understood his teachings realized something that changed everything. The elements weren't just in the universe. They were the universe itself, expressing itself through each of us. The importance of the four elements in personal transformation. But Franz Bardon made it clear that the true purpose of mastering the four elements went beyond magic. It wasn't just about occult abilities, but about personal transformation. To him, the elements were manifestations of the human psyche itself, mirrors reflecting what happens inside each individual. And without this balance, the spiritual journey could never be complete. The fire within a person manifests as willpower, motivation, and the courage to face challenges. When in harmony, it brings determination and initiative. But when out of control, it can turn into impulsiveness, anger, and destruction. People dominated by fire may act without thinking, burn through everything around them, and ultimately get consumed by their own excess energy. Water governs emotions, intuition, and adaptability. When balanced, it allows for deep connection with the world and others, bringing empathy and understanding. But too much water can lead to emotional instability, excessive attachment, and an inability to move forward. People with this imbalance drown in their feelings, reliving past pains and getting carried away by emotional currents. Air represents thought, communication, and analytical thinking. When in balance, it brings mental clarity, creativity, and ease of expression. But when there's disharmony, it can lead to non-stop thoughts, distraction, and anxiety. People with excess air get trapped in their own minds, unable to truly connect with the present. Earth is the foundation, the structure, the solidity. It's linked to discipline, patience, and the ability to bring ideas into reality. When balanced, it provides stability and security. But when excessive, It can make someone rigid, inflexible, stuck in routines and patterns that prevent growth. People with an overwhelming dominance of earth fear change, cling to what's familiar, and resist the natural flow of life. The key isn't to strengthen just one element, but to balance them all. If any element is in excess or deficiency, the entire system collapses. That's why so many people feel lost, disconnected, trapped in behavioral patterns that seem impossible to break. It's not an external problem, it's an internal misalignment. The ancients knew that true transformation starts from within. The alchemist seeking the philosopher's stone isn't trying to turn literal lead into gold. He's trying to transform himself. And to do that, he must first understand how the elements operate within his own existence. Earth, foundation, and stability in everyday life. And that's exactly why the first step to any real transformation begins with earth. Without it, everything falls apart. Earth is the foundation, the base, the structure that makes any kind of growth possible. In nature, nothing flourishes without deep roots. In human life, it's no different. The element of earth governs everything solid and tangible. It's the raw material of existence, the force that holds up bodies, homes, mountains, and the paths we walk. But beyond the physical, it represents internal stability, connection to reality, and the ability to handle life's challenges with strength and resilience. People with a strong connection to earth are grounded, disciplined, and reliable. They know how to plan, build, and bring ideas to life. They're the ones who don't just dream, but put their feet on the ground and make things happen. While others get lost in impulses, uncontrolled emotions, or scattered thoughts, those in harmony with earth stay firm, anchored in reality, knowing that everything happens in its own time. But when there's an excess of earth, the same foundation that brings stability can turn into rigidity. Fear of change takes over. The need for control becomes suffocating. Security turns into stagnation. People with too much of this element resist the new, avoid taking risks, and prefer to cling to what they already know, even if it means missing out on new opportunities. On the other hand, a lack of earth can be just as harmful. Without it, there's no structure. Ideas stay in the realm of imagination and never materialize. There's a constant feeling of being lost, directionless, without purpose. People with the deficiency of this element live in chaos, without discipline, without planning, without the ability to build a solid foundation for their lives. And here's the secret that few realize. Balancing earth doesn't just mean having external stability, it means having internal stability above all. There's no point in having a house, a job, and an organized routine if, on the inside, everything is in ruins. True stability comes from the inside out. Water, emotion, and adaptability in the flow of life. But earth, as firm and essential as it is, isn't enough on its own. Without water, everything would become arid, dry, incapable of sustaining life. Water is the element that sets what's stagnant into motion, that dissolves resistance, that fills empty spaces with the softness and strength of something that knows how to yield without losing itself. If earth represents stability, water symbolizes the flow of existence. It's the force that shapes mountains, that carves rock over centuries, not through violence, but through persistence. In the human body, it's the blood that circulates, carrying energy and renewal. In the mind, it's intuition, the connection to what can't be explained, but can only be felt. People in harmony with water know how to flow with life. They don't cling rigidly to the past, nor do they try to control the future. They trust, they let go, they understand that everything has a natural rhythm, and that resisting change only creates suffering. They're the ones who adapt with ease, who know how to feel without drowning, who understand that every emotion has its purpose and its time. But when water is in excess, that flow can turn into a storm. Emotions take over, becoming overwhelming. There's instability, indecision, a tendency to be carried away by fleeting feelings with no direction. Someone with too much water might get lost in nostalgia, cling to old wounds, or dive too deep into their own emotions without finding solid ground. On the other hand, a lack of water hardens the spirit. a person becomes cold, disconnected from their emotions and from the emotions of others. Sensitivity is lost, intuition is ignored, and life turns into a desert of extreme rationality, leaving no room for feeling. The ancients knew that water was essential for the balance of the soul. They observed rivers, oceans, and rain, understanding that this element carried a powerful lesson. True strength isn't found in resistance, but in the ability to adapt, to follow the natural course of life without losing one's essence. Fire, willpower, and transformation through inner energy. But there are moments when flowing like water isn't enough. There are times when transformation demands something more intense, more radical, something that burns away what no longer serves, that illuminates what was hidden, and that pushes the spirit beyond its own limits. That is the role of fire. Fire is the divine spark that gives life to creation. It's the first element to emerge in the universe, the force that turns darkness into light, cold into warmth, inertia into movement. In the human body, it manifests as passion, desire, and vital energy. In the mind, it appears as determination, courage, and the drive to take action. In the soul, it is the flame of spirituality, the sacred fire of inner transmutation. People with balanced fire have a magnetic presence. They don't just dream, they do. They're the ones who wake up every day with a purpose, who face challenges with bravery, who don't let fear consume them. Their fire warms, inspires, and illuminates, but this is an element that demands respect. When there's too much fire, it can burn everything around it. Anger, impatience, and pride take over. The need for control becomes an obsession. Unchecked fire devours its own master, turning passion into destruction. And when fire is lacking, life loses its spark. There's no motivation, no drive. Everything feels lukewarm, dull, without energy, without purpose. Someone with a deficiency in this element struggles to make decisions, to take action, to find that burning desire that fuels evolution. The alchemists knew that the secret of fire isn't to extinguish it, but to learn how to use it. It can burn or it can warm. It can destroy or it can illuminate. When properly directed, it's the engine of transformation, the spark that ignites all true change. Because in the end, everything that is reborn must first pass through the fire. And only those who have the courage to face their own flames can emerge on the other side, not as they were before, but as something new, refined, alchemically transformed. Air, intellect and communication in the expansion of consciousness. But fire, no matter how transformative, needs something to carry it forward, to spread it, to connect it to the whole. Without air, the flame dies out. Without the breath of life, consciousness remains locked within itself, unable to expand. Air is the element of the mind, of communication, of the freedom to think. It gives shape to ideas, allows the light of knowledge to spread, and moves the spirit beyond the barriers of time and space. It can't be seen, but it's felt at every moment. It's in the wind that carries seeds so new trees can grow, in the breath that fills the lungs and sustains life, in the words that leave the mouth and turn into action. Air is the invisible movement that connects all things. In nature, it shapes the clouds, defines the weather, and dances between mountains and oceans, uniting the sky and the earth. In humans, it governs intellect, mental clarity, and the ability to reason and share knowledge. Those with air in balance learn easily, express themselves well, and understand the world in a broad and deep way. But when there's too much air, it becomes scattered. Thoughts fly without direction, the mind fills with restlessness. Ideas come and go before they can take form. There's an uncontrollable flow of information, but no depth, no purpose. People with an excess of this element can be brilliant yet unable to focus. On the other hand, when air is lacking, rigidity takes over. The mind closes, communication becomes difficult, thoughts lose their lightness and adaptability. A lack of air suffocates the spirit, making perspectives narrow, judgments fixed, and words trapped inside those who carry them. The ancients knew that air was the divine breath, the link between the material and the immaterial, the bridge between logic and intuition. It was the force that allowed the initiate to understand the universe, not just with their eyes, but with an awakened mind. Secret teachings were always carried by air, in the winds of sacred words, in mantras, in temple chants, in knowledge passed from master to disciple. And that's why those who learn to balance air within themselves expand their consciousness beyond the limits of ordinary reality. They see what was once hidden, understand truths that once seemed unreachable, because air doesn't just connect, it reveals. And before you go, there's something really important waiting for you. I've got a special video that will take this knowledge even deeper and show you how to apply it to your life in a real and practical way. So don't leave just yet. Click on the video that's showing on the screen right now, and I'll meet you there. See you on the other side.